Hi, everyone. My name is Joan Raymond, and I was wondering, have you ever wondered how to get your work published in Chicken Soup for the Soul? If so, stick around, and we're going to be talking to someone today who's had three of their stories published in Chicken Soup. Like I said, my name is Joan Raymond, and this is a Heart for Writing, where I provide encouragement, support, and resources for writers of all genres. Today, I'm thrilled. I'm going to be talking to Elizabeth Delisi. She received her BA in creative writing from St. Leo University. She's been married to her high school sweetheart for 45 years and has three children and three grandchildren. She writes paranormal and time travel romance, cozy mystery, teaches online writing courses, and enjoys reading, knitting, playing piano, and watching old movies. Let's bring Liz in the studio. Hi, Liz.
Hi,
How are you
how are
today?
you?
I'm doing great.
Great. I'm happy to be here.
That's awesome. And we're 3 hours apart. You're way back in, what is it, Virginia or something?
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. Well, I apologize. So, New Hampshire. Yes.
That's okay.
My college that I went to was in New Hampshire. So I
Mm.
went online, but yes, never been there, but one of these
It's a
days.
beautiful state. You'd love it.
That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. So you get snow, a little bit of snow.
Yeah, we had a foot of snow in the last few days, and
Oh, wow.
now it's starting to rain, and everything is melting and getting slushy. So,
Ugh, I guess
not
that's
the
not
best if you have
fun.
to go out. Yeah.
That's true. If you get to stay in and write, that's perfect, right?
Hmm.
Awesome. So, according to what you've told me, you come from a family of writers. Your mother, your great
Hmm.
grandfather, they wrote as well, right?
Yes. Yep.
So, what type of stories did they write?
My mother tended to write little stories about little rabbits and little children, and that kind of sweet
Uh huh.
um, story. My great grandfather wrote the only two things that I know that he wrote is a poem about Christmas Eve, where all the presents come alive and start a war.
Uh huh.
And then he wrote one called A Doctor's Story. And it's
Wow.
very atmospheric, like kind of along the lines of Shakespeare, not Shakespeare, um, but Sherlock Holmes, maybe that kind of.
Wow.
And it was a story about a fellow whose girl, her parents didn't want him to marry her.
Oh,
So
wow.
she I guess she just kind of faded away after a while, but they took her to the tomb and put her in it, and then the boyfriend shows up, and he wakes her up, and she's okay. So
Wow.
it's
Wow.
kind of hard to describe, but it's great to read.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
then you said you wrote your first short story when you were 5 years old.
Yes, I did. I
What
had.
what what story was that?
I don't know the name of it, but I know that in I was in first grade, and the teacher had everyone do their spelling work, and one little girl came in, and she had written a story instead of doing her spelling work. And I said, "Well, I want to do that too." And the teacher said, "No, you have to do your spelling." So I did my spelling, but I also at home wrote a story.
Oh, that's cool.
So
That's
I
cool.
don't remember what it was. I wish I had it.
Yeah, I do. I wrote stories when I was 10, and it's like, "Ah, I wish I had them now, but
Hmm.
lost somewhere. I remember the names of them, but I don't have them.
Hmm.
So anyway, so since then, since you were 5, you've written in many genres.
Hmm.
But today we're only going to focus on a few of those because we could probably be here all day talking about all your genres, which is awesome because I write cozy mysteries also, and I know you
Hmm.
do. And so let's talk about. Oh, so we're going to talk about a couple of the genres that you write in, and then we're going to talk about your process and how you got published in Chicken Soup for the
Hmm.
Soul. Does that work for you?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. So the first one I want to talk about is this one, A Port in the Storm. So tell
Hmm.
us about this one.
Well, it's a short story, and you can actually get it free.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
it's about a fellow who was getting tired of city life and moved out to the country and
Hmm.
got a job with the snowplow brigade, and then this woman with her little girl shows up in that town,
Uh-huh.
and I think she's been widowed. I can't even remember, but somehow he finds her because she's sleeping in the car and it's snowing.
Mm-hmm.
So he finds them and brings them in, and of course, eventually they fall in love.
So it's a happily ever after.
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
And then I'll make sure I get the link from you to get that short story. So that's really awesome. How long ago did you write that? Do you remember what year?
No.
Okay.
It's been several years now.
Okay. Because was it before or after Chicken Soup or between?
It was before.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it sounds like you wrote fiction because Chicken Soup obviously is nonfiction. So it sounds like you've written a lot of fiction. So this one, let's talk about this one because I know I'm very curious about this. The Lady of Two Lands. So what type of a book is this?
Well, Lady of the Two Lands is a time travel romance that's set primarily in ancient Egypt.
Okay.
And the heroine, the main character, ends up going back in time and being, to all intents and purposes, being Hatshepsut, who became female pharaoh.
Okay.
But somehow they switch places, and she goes back and is in her body, and so I've always been interested in ancient Egypt.
Okay.
In fact, since I was probably 12 years old when I read an article, I think, in National Geographic that they were taking one of these temples apart and moving it to higher ground because they were going to put a lake in there. And so that interested me. I had to do a lot of research for that book, though.
I was going to ask you how much, because you must have done a lot to figure out time period.
And I contacted lots of people who gave me help, and I've actually got a listing of them in the book, so they get some credit for it.
That's awesome. So you have the book with you. Can you just hold it up? Because this is a full-size book, right? Yes. There you go. And we'll have a link for anyone who's interested in getting that one too. How long did it take you to write that book? Because you said you had to do a lot of research.
Yeah, I guess probably it was somewhat over a year.
Wow.
Because not only did I talk to people, but I watched lots of videos and, all that, and then tried to put it all together into a coherent story.
Right. And so it's based on real people, or you've made everybody up?
There are several people in the book, including Hatshepsut, who are real people. And then there are a bunch of minor characters that I just made up. So it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Egypt?
No, and I would have loved to go, but I don't think that's going to happen now.
Yeah. But I always thought it'd be great to
say also that this book won a cover art contest.
Oh, wow.
I've always loved the cover.
It is beautiful. Yeah, I've always wanted to go to Egypt and see the pyramids in person. I think that'd just be awesome. So,
that'd be great.
So let's talk about Chicken Soup for the Soul, as I know that's why everybody's curious. I'm going to show a picture. So these are the 3 books that you have stories in.
That's right.
Life Lessons from the Dog, My Hilarious Heroic Human Dog. I see kind of a theme going there. And then Miracles in the Unexplained. So it's not easy getting accepted to Chicken Soup. I've tried, and I know they get close to 5,000 submissions per book, and they only accept 101, if I'm correct.
Right. That's correct.
And I do know people that have been published, and they have waited a year before they heard. So do you have any of the books there with you? Or, I don't know, it looked like you were going to pick something up. You don't have to, but.
Oh, I do.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, and these are good sized books too. And if anybody's ever read Chicken Soup, it's just it's 101 stories that have been submitted by people.
There's that one.
That's awesome. I love the covers. So when you get published, you get several copies of the book, correct? And you get monetary pay.
Yes, right now I believe they pay $200. And you get 10 copies of the book.
Okay. So let's talk about your process.
Mm-hmm.
So this is definitely nonfiction. Does it have to be first person or can it be a third
Has to
person?
be first person,
Okay.
and it has to be something that actually happened. Not you can't be making it up.
Right.
Um, and there are all the tips and what you have to do on their website in order to submit.
Right. And I'm going to put a link to their submission page because I know right now they have several books they're looking to fill
Right.
submissions for. I think there's another one with miracles and a couple of other ones like cats and dogs. They've
Mm-hmm.
always, I guess their cat and dog ones really sell well.
Yeah.
So what did you do so for the very first one, which was the first book you were published in?
It was life lessons from the dog.
Okay. And I bet it was your dog, correct?
Yeah,
That
my
you,
dog from when I was a kid.
okay.
Yeah.
And so
And
it is also, we should say that it's 1,200 words or fewer in that you have to write this story. That's what I remember.
yeah, you have to stick with their numbers, and not go overboard.
Right. So what did you do? What was your process for writing this?
Well, first I came across their list of books that they were looking for.
Okay.
And I tried hard to think if I had any stories that would fit in that category because up till then I was just writing fiction.
Hmm.
And I remembered something from my childhood with our dog that I thought would make a good submission for them. So I wrote it and I sent it in and waited. And I was sure that they weren't going to take it. And then I can't remember, it was like 9 months later or something. All of a sudden, I got an email saying they had taken it and they were going
Wow.
to publish it. So that was exciting, but it's hard on your heart when you wait so long to hear.
Yeah. That, like I said, my friend, I think they waited a year and finally heard, and she's just had pretty much given up. So most people I've talked to say it's 6 months to a year. So don't just
Hmm.
let it go. Just forget about the fact that you even submitted it.
Yeah.
So because you're a fiction writer, do you think that helped you format the story? I mean, you must have added sensory details, smells and sounds and
Hmm.
setting and all that kind of stuff. So, do you think being a fiction writer helped you write your stories?
I think it helps you be a writer and write consistently. And I think it gives you some confidence if you've already been published, whether it was nonfiction or fiction, that can help you.
Mhm.
I'm not sure that it would help directly, but I think it gives you also a good method for figuring out. Okay, I've got 1,200 words, and I wrote 1,500. What 300 am I going to take out?
Yeah,
So that helps also.
that's the hard part. Yes. And do you have dialogue in there, correct? I mean, it's just not narrative. In other words, you're not just telling a story, you have people talking. Or do you need dialogue? That's the other
I'm
thing.
not sure if those stories of mine do have dialogue. They
Okay.
might not.
So that's one question I've wondered is dialogue important or is it more of you just telling a story like you're sitting around telling the family a story?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting here and just flipping through one of the books. I don't see any dialogue.
Okay. Okay.
It's descriptive, and telling the story,
Okay.
and of course in first person.
Yes. So then the second book, which was the
Mhm.
second one you were published in?
My hilarious, heroic human dog. That's about another one of my dogs, the one I
Okay.
have currently.
Okay. So this is more of a current story.
Hmm.
Okay. And what made you decide to write that one? What
Well,
hilarious thing did your dog do?
well, it was more like the heroic part and
Oh,
not the
okay.
not the hilarious part. I was giving the dog a bath and got her out of the tub and turned, and my hip snapped out of joint.
Ooh.
I fell to the floor, and I was not. There was no one else home. I didn't have my phone. The door was shut. I So I had to start shouting, and after about an hour, somebody heard me
Uh-huh.
and came to help. But our dog Gypsy, she didn't understand why I was screaming and she was frightened. But then she lay down next to me on the floor with her back against mine. So her
Oh,
wet back, and just laid there with me until we got somebody to come
and
and
help.
help.
Aw, that's so sweet.
Yeah. So that's the Gypsy story.
That's awesome. And how long was it between those two publications, those two books?
I don't
Years?
know.
Do you think it was years or?
Well, I can look and see.
Okay.
I don't think it was years per se, but where is the copyright date? Okay. So this one. Oh, come on.
Should be at the top, possibly, but I don't know. Maybe at the top of the page. And if you can't find it,
That was 2019.
okay.
Okay, and then this one, the second one, is and that one is 2021. So it was 2 years between the two of them.
Okay. So then the Miracles one is pretty recent then, if that was the third one.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It was
It would have to be probably
2022.
Okay. So now do you think, since you've been published, then do they send you a list of new, whatever you call them, titles or
Topics. Yeah.
topics? Yeah.
They do send them out periodically. They'll send out a newsletter to the writers and here are the topics that we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've saved them all in case I ever get another story that I want to tell. So.
Right. So you wrote all these pretty much the same, just first person narrative, not necessarily dialogue or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think it was easier to get accepted for the second and third, or?
It's hard to say.
Or here's a better thing: did you find out sooner than 9 months for the other two?
Well, definitely not on the Miracles one. The other dog story, it could have been 9 months or a year. I'm not sure.
So it's definitely the long game. It's not, we're going to just.
Yes, you've got to be patient. You got to wait. And they say right up front, don't contact us and ask us, how's it coming with my book?
Right.
So.
Yeah. Well,
lots of details on the website. You want to go there and check out the suggestions and tips for writing and the topics they're looking for.
Right. So the question then would be, do you have any specific pointers other than going to the website? Do you have pointers for writers who would like to be published? Any major tips like?
Well, tips for chicken soup or just tips in general?
Well, we're going to talk about chicken soup right now, and then I'm going to ask you in general.
Okay. Well, I think it has to be a story that you really feel close to, that you want to write, and not just that you're trying to dash off something and submit it and see what happens. It needs to be in your soul, I think, some story that you want to tell.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also say stick to the rules that they give you. Don't try to sneak one in with third person or over 1,200 words or whatever. You want to stick to, because they get 100 submissions per day.
Oh, wow.
So if you want to get in there, you don't want to stand out in a bad way.
Right. In other words, they're going to find any reason to reject you just because they have more than enough to look
Yeah.
through. Yeah.
Yeah.
And and also just keep trying, right? I mean,
Yes.
I do know
several things that I've submitted and I haven't heard anything on.
Uh-huh.
it's not a foregone conclusion that if you're published by them once, they'll take whatever you write the
Yeah.
next time.
I do know one person that had submitted something, it wasn't accepted, and then it's kind of like the dog stories. They submitted something, and then a while later, well, they never heard back. It'd been a year, and then they submitted it to another anthology, or with kind of the same thing, tweaked it a little bit, and that was accepted. So I think really seeing what the guidelines are and seeing what they want too.
Yeah, it's true. And they have said also that if you have a story that you submitted and it didn't get accepted, but later down the line you think that it would mesh with another topic that they're asking for, go ahead and send it in again.
Right. I mean, what's the worst they can say? Nothing.
Right. Yes, exactly.
So, what are you working on right now, Liz, story-wise?
Story-wise, I'm about halfway done with a novel that I have to get my butt in gear and finish it. And it's a paranormal romance.
Okay. Set in modern times, or is it set?
Yes.
Okay.
Modern times. It's called Knit a Spell.
Okay.
And it's like double meaning. That's the name of the heroine's yarn store that she runs.
Okay.
So knit a spell would be come in and sit down and bring your knitting, but it has another meaning as well, and that's she is a witch and she knits spells into these creations that she makes to help. Like if someone has arthritis in their hand, she will knit them a pair of gloves and put a spell on it so that it will help the pain.
And I'm sure she could do the opposite thing too. She could.
Yes, that's true. Well, she runs into some negative characters, so.
Right. And is this part of a series?
I don't know. That's something to think about, I guess.
Okay, so this is the first one.
Finish writing the first one, yes.
Okay, that's awesome. I love it. Yeah. So we're almost at the end here. Do you have any last advice or final advice, whatever the right word would be, for writers who want to write in several genres, or they want to write paranormal romance or, ancient Egypt romance? What advice would you give to our viewers that are watching right now?
Well, I think if you're going to write like I did the ancient Egypt one, if it's something that's an actual time period, you're going to want to do some research.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're going to be, fumbling for the right thing. And when I was writing ancient Egypt, I looked up and found out what their bathroom facilities are like, among other things. So you want all the little details to be in there. And I would say you don't want to try to write a story that you're writing because it's popular. You want to write it because you love it and in your blood, and you want to write it.
Right.
And I think that shows. I think when readers read a book, they can tell if the author really loved what they were doing or not.
Yeah, I agree. Writing for me is like breathing, and I think it's that way for a lot of us. Oh, I forgot to ask you one question, and I'll ask it quickly. Do you plot, or do you just write? In other words, are you a plotter or are you a discovery writer?
I plot.
Okay.
That way I know that I'm going to include all the important issues and not miss out on anything.
Do you ever go off your outline?
Well, I consider the outline to be flexible. So if I'm writing along to the outline and then something occurs to me that would be better, I do it and I change the outline to match it. So it's not really binding me.
Yeah, because I the last few writers I've talked to have been discovery writers. So it's just I think you're one of the first one that I've talked to that outlines a lot. So that's very cool. So, or the first one in a while that outlines. So
yeah.
Anyway, Liz, thank you so much for agreeing to come on and chat with me today. And congratulations on all your books, your chicken soup books, your variety, and the book you're writing right now. I wish you the best of success with it.
Thank you so much. It's been great to be here. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you. And if you've enjoyed what we've done here, I really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe to my channel because I've got a lot more good stuff coming. See you next time.